Hey folks, welcome to the View Podcast, episode 14. Which I'm surprised we've got that far, but we are on episode 14. It's been a bit of a break. Unfortunately, I've been away with work for a couple of weeks, so did have to take a bit of break. I went away with the best of intentions in the world that I was going to record loads of content and do lots of stuff. Brought all my kit with me, with my backpack really heavy, and then didn't get any time. So I apologize for that, but we're back. Get the logistical stuff out of the way to start with. We are still running the 15% discount on all Leeds and classic shirts over at toffs.com. If you want to check them out as well, some really good stuff there. And in the checkout basket, use the discount code TheView15 for 15% off there as well. Good guys, some really nice stuff there. You should go check it out. Right, let's get into this then. We'll start off. Welcome, Lockie and Max from Leeds Lately and from Lockie Leeds. How you doing, Lockie? How's things?
Yeah, good. Just busy. I've been talking behind. Just busy time for football in it. This from now till about November, and then quiet few months, and then in January it gets busy again. But yeah, it's good. Good times, I guess. It's good to be busy. It's good to be busy. Isn't it?
It is, especially when it's football. It's the best kind of busy. It's the best kind of busy. Max, how are you doing?
I'm all right, thank you. Yeah, I'm enjoying watching Leeds again. So it's been a positive few weeks for me because it's just like, oh, actually enjoying this. Like I can sit down and go, do you know what? Leeds have got a good chance of winning today, and it makes a massive difference to your mood throughout the whole week. So yeah, I've been enjoying it.
You said something yesterday on Joe's show that I meant to comment on it yesterday. I didn't. Starting to fall in love with Leeds players again. Who are you falling in love with?
Well, players like Jorginho, Rutter, it's someone who does something you're not expecting, isn't it? That's the kind of thing that makes fans in the ground go, oh, and it's like, it's just nice to see that somebody is gaining confidence, and somebody so young is just taking the ball and running at players, trying little things and trying little Maradona turns and roulettes and just going past people. And you're like, this is what we love to see. This is the feeling we had when, obviously he's not anywhere near as good as Rafinha, but it's the feeling you had when Rafinha would nutmeg a Gary Cahill and the GIF would get replayed over and over again. And it's just nice to have a bit of the ability to have a bit of flair in the team, a few flair players and people who can actually keep the ball in possession. And it's just lovely to see.
So refreshing, it really is. Like Pablo used to do, didn't he? And you just make someone, you just go, give up.
Yeah,
it's getting like that now.
It was easy, wasn't it, for him?
Yeah, it's nice to see nutmegs in Ellen Road again as well. That's been a highlight for me. I like those moments, that they get off your bum moments, at a moment where we go, oh, hang on, whoop.
Yeah,
wait a minute, something's happening. Yeah, he's been enjoying. I've been saying it all year. I'm a number and player name on the back of my jersey fan. I've always have. I very rarely have a jersey without printing on the back of it. And this year I just kept looking at the squad going, I don't know if I love anybody anymore. I don't know if I've forgiven this. Not these players because they're different this year, but the legacy from last season. I just thought,
yeah,
I don't know if I can get invested in any player again. Maybe I'm just too old.
Mine's literally the opposite story. I never get a player on the shirt. And last season I thought, do you know what? I'm going to get a player on the shirt. And guess who I've got?
Aronson.
Brendan Aronson.
So did I.
I thought he was going to be great. I thought he was going to be the Medford Messi. We were sold a dream. And then this season, I'm like, nah, I'm not getting a name on the back. But we said, I've had people asking my live chats when I'm streaming the games and stuff all the time, who's my favourite player at the moment. And although you really enjoy Jorginho Rutter, I love Ethan Ampadu. He's my favourite player because I just love a holding midfielder, somebody who's tough tackling and has the ability to spray a ball around the park. Yeah. I'm like, that's it for me. That's lovely. Hence why my favourite player was, I can't really see it in the corner, but the Calvin Phillips shirt. That's why. I think that's why I love that position so much as well, because of how Calvin played it for Leeds. It's just so nice to see somebody doing that role again and doing it so well.
There's a mate of mine called Rowan who was we tried to do a Legion, an objective Premier League podcast for a while. Didn't work out particularly well. I'm a Leeds fan. He's a Manchester United fan. He's gone off and done his own thing as well now. So, but we did a podcast on making CDM sexy again, and we basically came back to the conclusion that nobody wanted to be a central defensive midfielder until N'Golo Kante kind of made it a bit more of an attractive position again. And all of a sudden, we thought there's money in this. We see people like Thomas Gravison and Lee Carsley heading off to Real Madrid. You're like, oh, hang on a second. These roles can be glamorous as well. It can get you big moves. And then you go through the players you've said already, like Calvin Phillips as well. You know, just Words are tough right now because I'm sick, but withdrawn quarterback.
Yeah.
Do
Distribution.
Number 2.
you know what and that's it's the persona in it, the way they look, they just look calm and too easy for them. Do you know what, and this is to do with Marcelo Bielsa. Remember Gary Medel in the World Cup? I think it was World Cup. It was one of the competitions when Bielsa was the Chile manager.
Yeah.
Gary Medel back pocketed Lionel Messi. Right. And I remember that game. He followed him, didn't get anywhere, and I thought, yeah, CDMs are pretty cool.
Medel went to West Ham after that, didn't he? Had an awful time there. Just didn't work out at all.
He's in Italy now, isn't he?
Is he?
I can't remember what the club's called. I can see the badge in my mind, but I can't remember what the club's called. If only Andrea were here, he'd know, wouldn't he?
Just rattle it off. I have to have a quick look at this because
is it Bologna? It might be
probably.
Bologna.
He is currently at.
He might have moved on since then. To be fair,
current team Vasco da Gama. No, that's not right. That can't be right. No, his current club. No, yeah, it is. Yeah, Vasco da Gama. He was at Bologna last season.
Yes,
you're correct.
Right.
96 games for him he played there. He was it West Ham? No, it was Cardiff City. He was at, not West Ham. He 24 games for them. Yeah, when they got back into the Premier League, he just looked like a very average midfielder. And also his name was Gary Medel. I expected him to be like a came up through Northampton Town and
Do you know what he was most famous for? You know what he was most famous for? That commentary moment. Do you remember where it said he's done well, Gary Medel, not just with his breakup play, but with his passing forward as well. And he didn't even mean to do it. He just completely wrapped it off as if it was perfectly.
If anything could sum up a Bielsa player, it's Gary Medel back pocket and Lionel Messi, and after that, being bang average. That is the most Bielsa thing you'll ever see. It really is.
Oh,
what a man.
Let's hope Calvin doesn't fall into that. Fingers crossed for him.
Yeah.
If I hope it's a Calvin being back at Leeds next season if you get promoted. But yeah, there was a point to that. I can't remember what it was. Sexy CDMs. Ethan Ampadu is absolutely killing it this season. Yeah, he's been great. I've gone for Sam Byram on mine. I finally ordered a shirt and I stuck Sam Byram on the back of it. I've fallen back in love with the man that I swore I wished things on him when he left Leeds. I really did. I was a much younger, angrier man then as well. But I think he's been exceptional for Leeds. Outside of maybe 1 or 2 games, I think he's just been great.
And seems like a really good bloke as well. I love it when we sign. I know he came through us originally, but I just love it when we sign down-to-earth players who don't have an ego and just get on with it. And it just makes it. Elland Road and Leeds in general always has that old school feel to it in terms of what other football clubs are around. But when the players are like that too, it's like, oh yeah, everybody just gets their head down and get on with it. And I like that. And he epitomizes that, and he's very good as well.
Yeah, I've been very impressed with him. I really have. I think when we all signed him, we were all just kind of like, yeah, sensible, makes sense, but we didn't expect.
Well, we didn't even know whether it was going to be signed permanently, did we? At first, he was on that trial, and then we were like,
not on trial. He was not on trial, and then
and then we were like, oh, they're going to sign him, and then they waited a long time to do it, and then did they even tweet it out? I think they just put it on their website or something saying Byram signed or whatever.
Just happened, didn't it?
All right, nice one. Welcome back, Sam.
Someone say that he's earning 25 grand a week, and I thought that can't be right. That's even for the championship at this point. That's really low amount of money. Like that's not a lot of money in the championship even at this stage for Bear. But then you look at his injury history and you look at what Leeds were bringing in, and you think maybe they just said, "Look, we'll give you something and we'll review it." But
tell you what, Jer, I wouldn't say no to it.
I'll probably. Are you messing? Bite your hand off. Bite your hand off. Yeah, I think he's been great, and as long as we can manage, and I love the way Daniel Farke is managing the expectations and as well, like saying, look, he might not play at the weekend, he might not play midweek, but we'll judge it late. But he said today he's in his rhythm now. He's in a rhythm and he's in a good place, and the extra 24 hours sleep will help him recovery. Which gave me the impression that Sam Byram is sleeping in a cryo chamber. That was what it was. The only way his injuries are going to improve in 24 hours is if he's sleeping in cryostasis. So maybe that's what it is.
Farker's going to call him at midnight, and if he picks up, you know what I mean? Yeah. Why are you not in bed, Sam? Come on.
Because you've just phoned me. Get back in bed.
You woke me up, Daniel. Get your phone. It should be on silent, eh? You should be sleeping.
Well, we've got a potential problem there at the weekend, because if he doesn't play, and the question was asked today, what do Leeds do at left back? Because Shax is out with a shoulder problem, so he's out of the game at the weekend. There is nobody else. Firpo won't be due back until after the international break. So he kind of smiled and went,
I'll play left back.
We'll figure so I'll do it. I'll do a job. Joe Cole. I can do a job anywhere. Just give me a game. But yeah, Yeah, he said we could either change the system, which I don't think he'll do. Do we think he'll change the system, Lucky, if he has no left back?
Nah, he'll just. I don't know what he'll do. I'll be honest. I think
Pascal.
he'll change it.
Pascal, yeah, Cooper comes. Oh God, don't
Potentially.
no, Lucky,
Pascal,
no.
Cooper,
It'll be
Rodon,
Helder. It'll be
and
Helder,
Ayling.
won't it? I think.
Is
Could
he
be
Helder
Helder.
fit?
He is fit, but I don't
Yeah.
think he's in the
Just not
the-
about, is he? But I don't know.
favour at the
Well,
moment.
let's just. I don't think he'll do out drastic. Because realistically, again, Bristol City are a good side, but you're not going to change your entire game plan to try to beat them because we have a better team on paper, don't we?
think
So
he-
we should be beating them regardless. But it is a bit of an issue. I hope he's all right, and I'm hoping he is. I hope training went well after the press conference, and look, after today he's got 2-week break, kind of an extra week off. So
That's exactly it, isn't it? Get through
give
this
him a
game and
cryo
take a
too,
break.
but it'll be fine. Yeah. Hopefully.
Before we get into the there's a couple of things we're going to get through today. We're going to talk about the Piroe, Jorginho, Rutter answer the Farke game in his press conference today, which was an excellent answer, and I've been beating the drum about swapping those two around for a while now. But given the answer he's given, I've been like, fair enough, fine, because that was a very good answer. Max, did you see the press conference? Have you looked back at it?
Yes, I did my research today. I had it on before. I thought I didn't listen to it live, and then afterwards, whatever time it was, I was like, oh, I probably should actually listen to that because that's what we'll be talking about tonight. So I was like, I'll do my prep work.
Nice.
So I've done my homework.
Thanks, Max. Thanks. Outside of the Rutter stuff, how do you think? What were your thoughts on the press conference today?
I think he seems quite upbeat, even though he seemed like he was a little bit miffed that people kept asking that question, and we'll go into that in more detail. But he did seem, even when he was explaining that, he was passionate about it and he was into it, and he did he did seem okay. He was just talking about injuries in general and stuff that we've got, and like he said, the game at the weekend is important because it's important that we go into the international break with another win, or at least not a loss, so that we maintain that sort of momentum when we come back after the international break. But I think he seems in good spirits. I think he's confident, even with the left back situation as it is for this next game. I think he seems like he's sort of happy with where things are and where things are going. But I think he does expect us to improve as a team more. He says this is not the be all and end all. We are not a complete team yet. We are working on it, and I think we've seen that in certain games where we've been a bit inconsistent. But I like to see that he's still working on things. He's still trying to get through to people, and it bodes well. It bodes well for the weekend, I think.
There was a lot. I just again plug this. We did the interview with Michael Scubala last week, which is available on the channel if you want to check that out. Talking about John 21s, and one of the things I asked him was, what does he want to leave with players when he's done? And one of the things he said was, better never ends. And I really like that. Like, you can always get better. And to hear Farke saying things like that today as well, it seems to be a mantra that's going right through the whole club of like, just where you are right now is, even if you're playing well right now, you can still get better. You can still improve. We can still improve as a group. And I wasn't overly pleased with the second half against QPR the other night, but at the same time, I struggled to pick any player out and said they had a bad game. I thought everyone was fine. And if that's the worst that we do, keep a clean sheet, get 3 points. If that's as bad as it's going to be, I think I'm okay with that. I think he's doing the right things. Lockie, what were your thoughts on what he'd say today?
Best thing apart from the Piroe talk was when he talked about they asked him about Rodon, and he went, "He's a warrior and Welsh." Why is that a thing?
That was it.
I didn't catch that.
These poor Welsh players just like no arms or legs left. They're going to be like, "You're Welsh, you're all right." Yes, Rodon's probably asking, "Come on, boss, I need a bit of a. I've been battered there." No, you're Welsh.
Rodon looks like he's got 12 rounds of Mike Tyson as it is. Every time I look at a photograph online of Joe Rodon, he looks like he's upset, like emotionally.
I mentioned this.
Crying with.
I mentioned this on my live stream the other night. Whether he's just taken an absolute like shoulder to the chest, or he's just been kicked in the ankle, or he's just missed a sitter, his face goes into this little ball. All his features squish into the middle of his face, and he looks absolutely devastated, like the world's just collapsed around him. And he just looks like, "Oh, come here, Joe, give me a hug."
Yeah, he gets absolutely battered, doesn't he? Strouk's always fine, you know what I mean? He just strolls through it. Rodon gets battered.
Do you think they look at each other after a game and you've got Rodon with 2 black eyes, a bandage around his head, and just looking knackered. And you've got Pascal Struck with his hair slicked back, his kit's still perfectly white,
He's
tucked
just
in,
like,
looking all pretty. It's like, are you going to give me a hand at some point, mate? Are you? Are you going to jump in with me?
I mean, how often did
yeah,
Pascal's hair fall out when he actually had the bun on the back of his head? Ailing's used to come out all the time, but Pascal's just never did because he seems to avoid the well, just getting nailed by people.
Yeah. Just got everything, hasn't he? It's one of them
Or
people.
his
But yeah,
timing has been perfect that he manages to get in, nick the ball before he ever makes contact. Either he's
Yeah,
perfect timing or he's staying away from certain players. But Rodon is going head first into everything.
Yeah.
And I love that. Love that.
But, sorry, back to the question. You asked me about the presser. Yeah, like, and we'll talk about the good bit in a minute. But that was a little funny comment he made. Just very subtly said it under his breath. I found it hilarious. But yeah, I like the form he's in. Farke, he seems ready. He seems energized. I think he's trying to inject more energy into it. It was interesting what he said about the crowd. And I've been told by my mate who was there that it was a bit quiet for Ellen Road.
Could see a lot of empty seats on the coverage.
Yeah, I think a lot of that's it was train strikes, and that's the reason I couldn't go as well. So yeah, that's annoying that happens, but that's what it is. Yeah, it was. And I went to the Watford game, and look, we do have the best fans, but I think they're just so scarred from previous that there's always that little bit of nervous energy. And then listening to March on together is the best thing, but it is a little bit quieter than it usually is. From what I've seen and from what I've been told, I went to the Cardiff game, and that was the first game. Look, everyone were nervous. Everyone were really scared that game, especially when we went 2-0 down. But when it happens and when you see Jorginho, do a bit of skill and the entire stadium erupts, I think that's what he's trying to get out of the fans from the press conference, trying to energise them and tell them, look, I'm sorry, sometimes we have to play boring football. That's the way it is. But we need you. And that's whoever's there, all of us, we just need to go for it and just support them like we usually do because we have the best fan base in the country when we do that.
We definitely do. I keep trying to get my partner to come over to Ellen Road. Keep saying to her, like, you have to experience it. And she just keeps referring to Leeds as a gas lighting side because I see what you're like. And I don't want to get involved in that if they're going to gaslight me as well. It's like, well, I said, you go through an awful lot with Leeds, but when they do something positive, it's always worth it that bit more because you've had to go through the bad stuff to get to that moment. And they'll always test you. But I remember seeing Pablo. I was over for a game when Pablo scored against Bristol City when we got promoted that year. And I'm convinced the stadium moved about 1.5 inches because I've been there through really bad periods in League One when there was nobody in the stadium. I was over there for a lot of games. Bournemouth, Rotherham stood out to me. There was literally, you could just pick a seat because there was, we flew over with no tickets and just bought them outside the door and then just walked in and grabbed a seat. Like you could sit anywhere, it was that bad. And then you look at that game against Bristol City and you see when that ball went in, the place erupted. The volume was at a level I've never heard. I finished up 3 seats away from where I'd started off, down, not left or right. I'd gone over to not kill
and
myself.
that's what we need, isn't it, Joe? That's what we need back. Just that little bit of extra edge that we have got as a fan base. We need that back for sure.
Yeah. And you said, I think you're right. The trust is the thing. Like we need.
Yeah, exactly.
We've been through it last season. That trust isn't back yet. That we know they will get there. Like I mean, I didn't like seeing us running into the corner flag against 10 players at home to kill the clock. I thought we're better than that. But then
with a striker said is right.
Yeah, there's all of that, and I'm right there with you because that's I thought just someone smack a ball towards the goal and see what happens.
If anybody who doesn't usually score wants a chance to score in a game, just if you have the ball, shoot. It's literally Lyndon Dykes in goal. I couldn't believe that nobody took a shot against him. Not one shot on target after he went in goal. But the thing for me was that listen to Farke today going, he doesn't want them to go 100 miles an hour up and down the pitch at that point because the game is won. If we manage this correctly, we've got our 3 points and we preserve the legs till the next game. Like, okay. It's not the most exciting stuff. Bielsa wouldn't have done it, and that's the problem. That's all stuck in our head. We got used to that. Just keep bombing forward. Where Farke is more a case of, do you know what? There's 6 minutes left of injury time. I'm going to take off our number 10 and I'm going to put a centre back on because let's just manage this game out. Let's finish it. Give players a couple of minutes rest on their legs. And I was like, it's sensible. It's pragmatic. It's not the most exciting football, but I'm sure the more the players get used to the way he plays and the sharper they get as the season goes on, I'm sure we'll start seeing much more attacking plays because we have seen them have some fantastic attacking performances as well. So we know it's there.
And just on that, Joe, real quickly as well. I remember last year, Man City, what they did the year before, when they bottled the Champions League and they kind of burnt out in that competition, and Pep was talking about the amount of games you have to play and stuff like that. What they did last year, whenever they went 2-0 up, they just turned 2 gears down and they just saw the game out a lot of the time. I remember when they played Leicester, and I think they were like 2-0 up in 10 minutes. And it's like, oh, this is going to be 9. But what they did, they just controlled it. They knew they were good enough to win that game. Leicester got one back and made it 2-1, but they were never going to score again. It was kind of that feeling that this is enough. And you saw it against us, right? When they were winning, they got it in the corner because, and that was a big Sam side. They had it in the corner for the last 10 minutes, and we're going, oh, that's because we were good. They were just controlling it. They didn't need to, because them extra last 10 minutes when you fatigue, that's the most tired part. So I think that's just them. I think we've learned from that, and Farke knows the amount of games in this league, and he thinks, just keep it. I want us to just go score 3 against a striker now, obviously, but from his perspective, he's just thinking, let's just relax. Let's just get through this. We've got 1 more. 3 games in a week is a lot, like he said. So, yeah, frustrating that we did that, but yeah, like I said, I do get it to an extent, but it is a striker, and that's it one at him at least. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, for today, I have to just let him do his thing and go along with it, and assume he knows. He says he knows what he's doing. Fair enough. Max, our form leading into this international break, which feels like it's come straight on the back of an already boring international break, and then we got to put up with a second international break. I hate international breaks so much. I'd rather watch Leeds play than anybody else. I'm going to be forced to watch Ireland playing, and I hold the FA accountable for that.
You could just support England if you wanted.
Yeah, that's not going to fly, Max. Sorry, mate. That's a long, 800 years of a history there. We won't get into that today, though.
This will be a long podcast.
Well, in 16, no. The form coming into this, Max, coming to the international break. So between the two, we've got we've only lost 1 game, which was obviously against Southampton, who picked a bit of form as well. But only 1 defeat, 1 draw, 3 wins.
It does.
Are you happy with the form coming into this?
It does feel a bit muted and sort of like, oh, it's not that great because of that Southampton game. But if you take that out of the equation, when you look at the performances, the points we've picked up, the way we've won the games, and the clean sheets, other than that game, that's just a blip, because the other of our last 4 games, whatever it is, have been really good, and we haven't conceded, and we've scored goals, we've created chances, we've been really, really good. So yeah, the Southampton game kind of casts a bit of a downer on things going into the international break, because people will be thinking about that. But I think if we can beat Bristol City, we'll have won 2 on the bounce again, and hopefully that starts us on a little bit of a run, and we'll come back after the international break and go, do you know what, we've just won last 2. Why the hell can't we carry on winning? So I think that's why, not necessarily for league position at the moment or anything like that, the Bristol game's important. I think it's important because, sorry, I should say Bristol City, because there's Bristol Rovers as well, isn't there? The Bristol City game is important because of morale and the way mentally that plays into players' games coming back after the international break. I think it's important that we win that one. And so there's no reason why we couldn't, given the form that we're in.
So for me, it's about just being consistent, getting in a run, getting in a rhythm. We've not done that yet, have we? We've not been in a consistent rhythm. And in this league, if you can just gather some momentum, you fly. That's, we look at Burnley last year, they were drawing, lost 1, drew. As soon as they got 2 wins in a row, they didn't stop then. That was
You start to feel like you can't lose when you and that's not even, because you could, so some people might argue, oh, you would get complacent then. But no, because I hesitate to compare us to Man City, and I'm not. But Man City are always the example to go through, because if you take the moral stuff out of the equation, they're like the perfect football team. Like, they just do everything perfectly. They don't panic, and they just win game after game after game after game, because they almost feel like they cannot lose once they get on those streaks. And that's why sometimes you see them 18 wins in a row or whatever it was, that ridiculous streak that they had a couple of years ago. And it just shows that mentally, the mental aspect of the game is such a huge part of it, that if you can get on a run, and like Lockie says, in the Championship, it's a massive thing, isn't it, when teams get on a run? If you can get on a run of 2-3 wins, you start to go, I can't see us getting beat here. We're too good.
And that's it. Burnley last year, at this point, I think it's on the square ball, they were only 1 point better off than us. I think they were 9 points behind Sheffield United, and they finished 15, 20 points above them. There's a lot of games to go on. And like I said, we've not had 2 wins in a row yet, which I found wild. we've won, drawn. We've not won 2 in a row. I just think we need that barrier. We can do clean sheets. We know that. We can score goals now. Let's do that twice in a row. Let's get another clean sheet. Let's win tomorrow, score some goals. And then that going into international break, you're full of confidence and just waiting to get back. And these players, for me, have that run in them. We saw it under Bielsa when we got on a run as well. We were, that end of the season run, we were not losing. When we came back, we had a slight wobble, didn't we? First 2 games. But after that, nothing was stopping us, was it? Even before COVID, I remember we were just winning. The Huddersfield game, last game before it got thingied, we were just unstoppable. And we need that back, both all from the players, the manager, the crowd, the fans. We need that mood back. Because once we're in that mood in the Championship with these players as well, who you could argue individually are better than players Bielsa had, let's be honest, apart from maybe Pab and Calvin Phillips.
I think Bamford's just as good as Bamford.
Yeah. but yeah, sure.
I don't know what that was.
Maintained himself.
Yeah,
just more injured. But yeah, like these players getting a rhythm and momentum, no one can stop this team.
But it's that thing, Lucky, though, isn't it, about turning draws into wins and losses into draws? Like if you can turn the defeats you've had into a draw, and you can turn the draws into wins, then all of a sudden your whole season changes drastically. I mean, I know everyone's saying Leicester running away with it, but they will have a spell this season where it doesn't go their way. I mean, they won't go the entire season without injuries. They won't go the entire season with winning, and they have to play us twice. And if ever there's a chance to close the gap and get 11 points down to 5, as Leeds go and beat them twice,
Leicester's a bit of a bogey team for us, isn't it? Over the last, I don't think we've beaten them once over the last few years. Or did we? Maybe was it the one where? Who was it that was it? Dallas crossed it in and it just bounced straight past Kasper Schmeichel. Do you remember? It was a cross and nobody touched it and it just bounced in the box and just went straight past him because he was expecting a touch. But I think with the fact that you're talking about turning draws into wins and turning losses into draws, I think all that success starts at the back in a football team. And the first thing you do is keep clean sheets. And we've already shown that we can actually start to do that now. We are really helping out Meslier with limiting the amount of shots that he faces. So obviously he's going to have a better game because he's only got 1 or 2 shots to face. And when he does, actually, I've been really impressed by the fact that he's not had a shot against him all game. Like the Watford game, not had a shot against him all game. And then right at the end, he has to pull out a really good reflex save. I like that. And I like that he's able to do that. So he's playing really well. Then you've got the defense of the actual back 2 centre-backs. Pascal and Rodon have been really good at limiting chances, forcing players to go wide. And what I like about Rodon is he's got a bit of pace, and we've struggled with that before. I mean, Pascal's not the quickest. You can see that he gets outpaced a lot of the time, but Rodon's always there on the cover, and he gets himself between the ball, like gets himself goal side, basically, between the ball and the striker, and just gets his shoulders wide, sticks his arse out and says, "You're not getting this off me." And we've not had that. So it's the ability to be a little bit more flexible defensively, and the fact that if a ball does go over the top because you're playing quite a high line, Joe Rodon's actually got the pace to get back and to defend that. And then obviously the fullbacks have been playing quite well as well. Hopefully when Jed Spence comes back, that gets even better. But I think we're already looking a lot better as a defensive unit, and that is where our success is going to come from, because with a solid foundation, we're able to let those flair players go up front.
Yeah, I agree, Max. And I was just like, I think it's going massively under the radar defense. I really do. I think when it's that defense, just talk about, the Southampton game, we didn't have Rodon in there. I think that's massive. We didn't have him, to be honest, because he's just really good. When it's our defense, the Pascal, Byram, Rodon, and ideally Spence, that will be ridiculous. Like, we talk about a defense now. We've arguably not got the highest caliber of player in there yet. In Jed Spence, who went to Rennes last year and was really good when he went there, with Rodon, obviously. Like goals, I think expected goals against at home games, we've got the lowest in the league, which is not spoke about. Teams don't create a lot of chances at all.
That's a quick turnaround from what we were doing. That is a really quick turnaround.
It's really impressive. It's really impressive. And look, we still got mistakes, but every defence has mistakes. I've seen Leicester's defence give loads of mistakes. Southampton's defence gives mistakes every game. We just look so, I think, composed off the ball. I don't know, even in times where we're under pressure, everything just gets headed out for me. I think it's we look really solid.
And we've actually, it goes under the radar a lot that defenders should sometimes contribute to the goal tally at the end of the season. I know it's not their primary role, but the fact that on set pieces, they should be getting into the box and scoring headers every now and again, just from corners and stuff. It can add 5 to 10 goals to your tally at the end of the season. And it can really help you out, because I know it's not the Premier League, but I think Dan Moylan always went on about how it was like a goal per point or something like that.
Yeah.
But the more, basically, Farke says, the more goals you score in this league, the more likely you are to win it. And I think Pascal's really improved in that department. Heading, awful. But for some reason, he's really good at just bringing it down in the box and somehow squeezing it through a crowd of players.
That finish was outstanding, by the way.
Yeah,
that finish
not gonna
finish.
So that's what I was getting to. Southampton, nobody was going to talk about that because we lost 3-1. But the fact that he backed into 4 players, pulled it out of the sky and just put it in the bottom corner, I was like, oh, sorry, Messi, where did you come from?
Which was exactly what you wanted Piroe to do when he got a similar chance, was to poke it, and he put it straight at the goalkeeper. You know, one's the striker and one's not, and the not striker is the one that finds the corner.
Yeah, shocking.
He's been great. He's been, and I was critical of him at the start of the season. The first game specifically, I thought the defender that we thought was there, maybe it isn't there anymore. You know, you can see the confidence that's built in him over the course of the season. For me, he's one of the first names on the team sheet. I think he's been absolutely excellent. What I will say, Max, you're talking about having Rodon covering for him, but when it's on the other side, Strauch reads the game very well. Like, he finds himself in the positions where the ball is going to land and manages to. We already said it. He manages to come out of the game unscathed and not dirty and squeaky clean, because he reads the game particularly well, where Rodon has to go in and do the smashing up, you know, for us, which we need. You need both. One that can play out from the back and one that can break everything up. And I think we're very lucky with the centre backs that we've got there at the moment. And I think Creswell is a very similar player to Joe Rodon as well. So you've got that option there, and you've got Cooper, obviously. But look, for the first time in a long time, we've got options, which is so good. And you talk about Jed Spence coming back there. I cannot wait till Jed Spence is fit. I cannot wait to see that right-hand side.
I think
based on one game, that's it.
First on 10 minutes. He
just ran through people just to get out of the way. And then he lost the ball, and then he just knocked players out of his way and ran after the ball. And I was like, yes, more of this, please. I want to see more of this.
I think the thing that it slightly falls apart when we haven't got one of those two available, those two centre backs. But I think Farke needs to, I know he's probably not going to do this, but for me, it's undervalued by modern managers having a right-footed centre-back at right centre-back and a left-footed centre-back at left centre-back. And people say it doesn't really matter now, but the fact that you have to get round the ball to kick it. Cooper's right foot is really weak. For him to have to get round the ball to kick it. So for me, if Rodon's injured or suspended, it has to be Charlie Cresswell that plays at right centre-back. And that is his spot if Rodon's out. And Cooper for Strauch. I think that they're the two backups, and they need to come in their correct centre-backs, for me, position, which side it's on. Because that makes a difference. And I think we struggled against Southampton having left-footed centre-backs on the right-hand side of the defensive partnership. And it didn't really work for me. And hopefully, if he does that, we have that solidity of going, okay, either one of these players can come in and do just as good of a job. I mean, Pascal's only 24 as well.
It's got so much time. He's got so much time.
I think people, with goalkeepers, it's generally accepted that you're not in a first team until you're a little bit older. But I think the same rule actually applies to a lot of centre-halves. You don't see many centre-halves that are 24, 23, 24 playing every single week throughout an entire championship season. And so Pascal's already done really well to get into that position. And a lot of us, obviously, he had a bad season because they all had a bad season last year. But a lot of us were sort of saying, I don't know if he's ever going to reach his potential or be that good. I mean, he was only 23, wasn't he? And it's sometimes easy to forget that. But yeah, I'm excited about Strauch having a full season to solidify that role.
I think he's grown up, Max. I think this season you've seen a level of maturity coming through from a player that I didn't see before. You know, watching how I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but there's a little bit of presence about him on the park. Like, he looks bigger than everybody else. He looks more dominant. He looks like he's in control more often than not. And then you see the crosses coming into the box, and he's absolutely throwing himself at them. Like, he's got 3 goals already this season. I fully expect him to get 5 or 6 by the end of the season, because he's just like most of the balls are bouncing off his head and going to the over the copper,
absolute
over
50p
the
head.
stand. But you shouldn't have said that, Max. Now we've lost you. Look, you insulted Pascal.
You can still hear me. That was really
there
weird.
You go, you're
literally
back.
Nothing happened. No overheating. Nothing. Everything's plugged in fine. It just went off.
Don't insult sexy pirates, and it won't happen to you again.
Sorry, Pascal. Sorry.
There you go. Yeah, there's a level of maturity there. I think he'll score more goals this year. I think he will get a couple of headers as well. He's been in great positions from an attacking perspective. Someone made a point. I don't know what podcast it was on, but somebody made the point that the delivery from Leeds players this year is better than it has been the last 2 years. And that maybe he just stopped making the runs with the amount of commitment that he's doing this season, because it was like, well, what's the point of making the run? The ball's not going to get there anyway. It's going to hit the front post and it's going to go out. Whereas this year, he seems to just be committed to the run. Like, I'll just get to that space, and if the ball arrives, I'll nail it. And he's done really well at that. But he's been a standout for me this season. I wasn't going to talk about him much, but I think he hasn't been talked about probably enough, because Ethan Ampadu's kind of stolen the show. We've talked a lot about Joe Rodon's need to be in the team, and Sam Byron, I think Piroe Pascal's kind of gone under the radar, but I think he's been massive. And then you take the Southampton game into consideration, and it's Cooper's accommodated by moving Stroke to the right side, and then he has the worst game of the season that he's had it playing at right centre back Stroke, and you move him back to left centre back against QPR, and you're like, yeah, fixed, no problem.
It's that classic Leeds thing, though, isn't it? Of playing somebody out of position for years and us all thinking he's bad, giving him a run of games in his preferred position that we all knew that it was his preferred position when he was in the well, obviously he wasn't in the academy, but you know what I mean, when he was in the under 23s and stuff. Oh, he's good now. Rodrigo.
Rodrigo, cough. Yeah.
Whoever else, Dan James. I know Dan James isn't the best player in the world, but now he's actually just being allowed to have his own job. No responsibility of being the striker for the entire club. Just put him on the wing, and he's got 4 assists already. It's like, oh, okay, he's doing well now. You've actually just let him go in his position, taken the weight off his shoulders, because there's all the other players who can deputise in that role, and just let them go. And I think that's what Daniel Farke, and a combination of that and the recruitment that we've done, which has obviously allowed players to have backup, is really sort of... There was conversations about whether we would be able to refresh people's minds and keep the players from the old squad and still them have a role to play in the Championship. But I think Farke and the club with recruitment have done a brilliant job of taking the load off their shoulders and relaxing them a bit and saying, do you know what, just go and play football and enjoy it.
Yeah, and he mentioned it, Pascal, a few weeks ago, I think, in an interview, in short ones he did on Sky Sports. He mentioned, I think it was on Sky, isn't one of them, but he mentioned about when he got brought into Leeds that he came from Ajax, obviously, and then their brand of football is playing football. That's how they do it there, especially in Ajax. And he said that's what he got brought to Leeds, under Marcelo Bielsa. That was the brand they did in the 21s, all the way to the first team. So when he came to the first team, it was all about playing out from the back, all about intensity, all about passing, ball playing centre half. And then he said, obviously, last year, that wasn't his job anymore. And suddenly you lose that confidence. And that's a big identity. That's a big part of his play. And same with Meslier, he was saying the same thing in France, where he came from. It was all about playing from the back as a goalkeeper. And when you lose that identity, what are you then? Do you know what I mean? It's like a dribbler that can't dribble. What's your job? What do you do? How are you helping the team? You're not. So it's good to see that the players are now playing a style that they're comfortable with. And that's, again, like Max said, that's recruitment on the manager and everything.
Yeah, I trust him, Farke. I do trust him. I know I've questioned a couple of decisions. We'll get into that in a second, but I do trust him. When he says things, I listen, and I'm like, yeah fine, okay. One real quick thing I wanted to just mention, just in passing, was it was great to see Howard Wilkinson back at Ellen Road on Wednesday night, looking very well, which was great to see, looking very healthy for a man of his age. I was a big Howard Wilkinson fan. I know it didn't end particularly well, but always felt he deserved more of a mention in Leeds history, considering he was the last English manager to win the top flight. We talk about naming training grounds after managers and putting statues up, and his name is never gets put in the mix. And for me, it should always be in the mix. He did a great job for Leeds when he was here. We've got a badge on our chest that he designed. We've also got a training centre that was his brainchild. And then we've the bad side of what he brought to football, which was transfer windows. That was his idea as well, transfer windows. So unfortunately, we have to deal with that. But it was great to see him. I'm delighted to see him back at Leeds, and hopefully there's a lot more visibility of Howard Wilkinson at Leeds. It's probably before your time, lads, is it?
It is.
Yeah, about 5 years before I was born, he won that last title, 92.
Yeah, too.
Yeah.
My Max's era was League One, I think, when we were.
Yeah. But as soon as I was old enough to remember, it was Rob Hull's David Healy. That was the first ever
David Healy.
Leeds shirt I had. I think I had Healy and my brother had Hull's.
I had 1 or 2 years of Champions League, and I was very young. I remember, Alan Smith. I remember in particular Mark Viduka. Used to be my 2 favourite. Yeah, but after that, it was all miserable.
It was Becchio and Beckford and Snodgrass were my heroes growing up.
Yeah. Howson.
Yeah. Bradley Johnson.
Sam Byron.
I remember how hard Rudolph Austin could absolutely win.
I love that man.
I loved him so much.
If I could meet any ex-Leeds player, it would be Austin. I would love to meet Rudolph.
He'd always play well against Huddersfield. I'm from Huddersfield, so all Huddersfield fans.
He'd do this thing where he's like, I don't score goals, and then he'd score absolute bangers, and he'd be like, what do you mean you don't score goals? Every time. Then there was he was out for 8 months with an injury and came back inside 3 weeks. They're like, he was ruled out for 8 months and was back on the pitch in 3 weeks.
Imagine him under Bielsa, by the way. Prime Rudy Austin under Bielsa.
Even a year after he left, and he had this lovely we're way off topic now, but I love the guy. There's a podcast on Rudy Austin on his own, but there was they gave him the captain's armband. Everyone was screaming for him to get the armband, and they gave him the captain's armband, and we lost, I think, 2 of the first 3 games or something like that. It was a bad start to the season, and he gave the armband back to the manager and said, I can't represent this properly. You need to give this to somebody else. And I thought the modesty of the guy alone, but he did always seem to have this little self-doubt in the back of his head that he shouldn't be here, and maybe it's a bit of imposter syndrome, but I don't ever remember him playing particularly bad for Leeds. And even when he was bad, he still gave you absolutely everything. You know, and that was an era where El Hadj Diouf was floating around as well. So it wasn't.
Yeah.
We didn't have the best.
Get him on your show, Joe. There you go, Joe.
I would love that. I would love him and Tony Yeboah. I would walk on broken glass to interview. I would love to. Anyway, let's move on. Before we get to the press conference bits, I want to talk about the Piroe and Rutter conversation. I want to just kind of box off the Bristol City game. Bristol City 11th place in the table, 2 wins in the last 5. Leeds coming into it 3 wins in their last 5. Bristol City have kind of beaten the teams we've beaten, and they've lost the teams we've lost to. So
they've had a very similar start, haven't they?
Yeah, very, very similar. And they're not a million miles behind us either. A win would put them above us, yeah. So, Max, what are your thoughts coming into this game with Bristol City? What do we need to do? Daniel Farke said it's a crucial game. Then he said it's not that important all up, but in terms of going into the international break and a points per game tally, this is a crucial game. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I think it's like I said before about it. It's not just the league position or anything like that, but like Farke says, it's going into that international break. And like we said before, where you're starting that run of feeling like you can't lose. We've just won a game and we didn't win it particularly handsomely. But if we go and win this one as well, you think, okay, we're just capable of winning games no matter what. It's just, we just need to be careful it's not a banana skin, because we could easily just lose before the international break and have that stop-start thing again. But it's just about being confident, playing the football that we've started playing this season, and it's at home, isn't it? So it's get the crowd on side, score an early goal, and then you have the confidence to go. And I think that's the thing with this Leeds team. If we score early, we will win. But I think it's because Farke is so good at game management. But I think the later we leave it, the more likely we are to concede, and then it starts to worry you a bit more, and that probably creeps into the players' heads as well. So for me, go out and get an early goal, and then game manage, try and get another one a bit later into the game, and then it's nice to just get a goal in the 10th minute and a goal in the 80th minute, and just bookend the game nicely and nice and easy win, hopefully.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Lucky, what are your thoughts on it?
I've seen like online, say, are they going to park the bus? Are they going to come out? Don't matter. To me, look, we're a better team. We've got better individuals. You know, we should beat them. It's the same for and this is mentality for any team in this league, realistically. Like, don't matter how they set up, we've got to be better, regardless of if it's deep, regardless if they come out for it. We have the individuals to beat that team, right? That's what the mentality the top clubs have in the Premier League to everyone else. That's what we have to have, given our position right now, to everyone else. It's not, it's not been deluded. It's the truth. You know, we spent the most money. We have the better players. We should be beating them. Look, you've got to be careful. There's some good players in that team. You know, some players that have a lot of experience at this level. But yeah, just let's put our system on them. Everyone's talking about the way teams are going to set up against us, but how are we going to set up? Let's get Rutter in them positions again. Let him have freedom. Let him create space. Let him take players on. whoever's on the wings, be direct, be aggressive, press them. Because we've got the players, we can trust our midfielders. Go press them, go and enjoy yourselves. And we've got the back four who can be solid all game. Let's just get a performance and get the crowd going and get them to be excited, about watching Leeds United, because that's what we have to do. And look, they're a decent side, of course they are, but we're not 100% yet, and that's what I'm happy about. There's still a bit to go for our players, and now's the perfect time to get 2 wins in a row, 6 points for international break. Show the fans and the league what you're capable of, like we did against Watford, because they tried it for a bit. They tried to sit deep. Look, they soaked it up for a bit, but it didn't work in the end. We found the gaps, and same again. I want another Watford-esque performance, I think. Just a dominant one where we're just better. You have to put it like we're just better.
Yeah, every second game we've been involved in has had 3 goals for one of the sides. We've a 3-0 win against Millwall, then we drew 0-0, then we won 3-0, then we lost 3-1. And lots of threes in it. So after a 1-0 win, I think we're due at 3-0, aren't we? Or 3-1 at least in this one.
And that's not disrespectful to Bristol, obviously. Like, you got to take every opponent seriously, but at the end of the day, you've got to be confident in your own ability and what you are. And Jorginho Rutter, let's be real, on his day is better than any defender he comes up against easily at this level. And look at individual, Chris Somerville as well. Piroe, we'll get into that, but he can score goals in this league. He does it. He's done it for years.
Gareth Ainsworth said the Leeds have literally got a Premier League quality side.
Loads of managers have, haven't they, Max? They've all said it. And we're just waiting for them to come out properly in a 90-minute.
It's not cocky to say that you expect to win games when we look at our squad on paper. I've just looked at their squad against Rotherham. I don't even know any of the players. Like, I've never heard of half of them. Well, no, I'm sorry, I've never heard of 90% of them. I've heard of Harry Cornick and Naki Wells, who's on the bench. Oh, and Andreas
score, isn't he? He's going to come on and score, isn't he?
No, he's not.
He always scores against us.
Let's break the curse.
We just.
Andy King plays for them.
Yeah, Andy King. We just got to worry about ourselves. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a boring answer, but we're good. Let's be good. Do you know what I mean? Let's just be good. No rubbish. Just get on with it and win. Simple as that.
I think you're right. Do you want to do some score predictions, Lucky? What are you thinking?
I like a 3. I like a 3-1.
3-1. Max?
Yeah.
I think because we beat QPR 1-0, we score enough goals to add that up to a nice 3. So I think we win 2-0. Bookend the game, like I said before. I think hopefully if we score early, we can then manage the game. And as they push out more and more to try and get an equaliser, that's when we score. Sucker punch.
I'm sitting on a 2-1 because it's a Nigel Pearson side, and I expect the ball to be lumped into the area an awful lot.
Hopefully, that's what we were talking about though, with Rodon and Strauch being able to deal with those balls a lot better. Hopefully, we can combat that sort of play this season with them. I mean, Rodon's pretty tall, isn't he? I don't know how tall he actually is, but he seems to be up there every time to win those headers, and Pascal does as well. So let's hope that they can combat that sort of play.
Cool. All right then, let's see how it goes. Finally, just finished off. Got a couple of minutes left just to talk about the. I've talked about it an awful lot on my channel. I've spoken about it on Joe's show. I know we've all talked about it, and that's are we missing the trick playing Jorginho Rutter in the 9 and Joe Piroe in the 10? Why can't we just swap them around? Because Rutter played in the 10 when Bamford came on. It seems
I think me and Lockie both did videos about this about 3 or 4 weeks ago as well. So we've all spoke about it. It's been a very big talking point, hasn't it?
Yeah, because I think it's been something we've looked at, and you see how well Rutter has done in deeper areas of the park. The ball he put through for Bamford during the week, the assist to Jaden Anthony, his goal himself that he scored a couple of weeks ago as well, all coming from deep areas. And then the goal for Somerville comes from cutting in from a wide area, kind of a free roll area. But Daniel Farke spoke about it today. He seemed annoyed about being asked the question, which I can understand, being asked the same question every single week, because it just seems like such an obvious thing to everybody. He did see it was more fired up, Daniel Farke. He said he was in game mode, and he had to calm himself at moments during the press conference. But he asked the journalists he will answer the question in detail, and then please don't ask me again. Was what he said.
I want to see somebody ask next time just for a laugh.
Just to see, hey, Dan, about your... No, don't. He did say,
I'm going to punch you unbelievable hard.
Yeah. Unbelievably hard question for you. Jorginho Rutter, no. He did say that he understands that people have an opinion on it, and he welcomes those opinions, and people are allowed to discuss it and have different, which is where we fall into it, I think. And we will keep talking about it because it is a topic to talk about. And he made a very good point, and I have to hold my hands up on this one. We said we sing Jorginho. Oh, sorry, we sing Joel Piroe's name when he scores goals, and when he doesn't score, we talk about him being played in the wrong position. That's not fair to the player. It's not fair to the squad, and it's not fair to Farke as a manager either. Piroe currently goal per game average has him finishing ahead of anything he's ever done at Swansea playing in the out and night. So again, hands up, fair enough. They're valid points. It's a very, very well placed argument. He then went into a long answer, which I really appreciated the detail on this because I wanted to know the reasons why. And he talked about it's not just their goal scoring ability, because if it's just goal scoring, then Piroe you play in the 9. But it's not just that. It's pressing. It's probably not Piroe's strongest points. Bamford and Rutter are better at that. I would argue that we don't press really at all. So does it really matter? But then he gave me the best answer, and that was when he started off coaching, he had a striker, won the Golden Boot, had to sell him. Second striker came in, won the Golden Boot, had to sell him. Third striker came in to replace him, won the Golden Boot, had to sell him because they were a small club. He then goes to Dortmund, takes a player that's not been playing regularly.
This was the under-21s, wasn't it?
Yeah, under-21s. Goes on, wins the Golden Boot in that league as well. Then he takes Timu Pukki from Celtic, who wasn't doing well at Celtic at all. Takes him down and wins the Golden Boot 2 years in a row, or 2 times in the championship, as well as Farke saying, I've won this league twice as well. So you're like, fair enough. He goes, I know my strikers.
Yeah, and there was mentioned Marcus Thuram as well. He said he was Marcus a winger Thuram when he came in at Borussia Mönchengladbach, made him a striker, and then he started the World Cup final as a striker. So
and
he's
second in the Golden Goal for the Golden Boot for the World Cup as well, apparently. So that was pointed out. Max, it's a good answer. Does it change the conversation? Will it stop us asking the question, or do you accept the answer that he's given us?
I think it's interesting because for me, first of all, I think it's quite brave for him to make this decision, not about the thing, but just to play them in those roles. Because if you play Piroe up top and Rutter in behind and it doesn't work in a game, nobody is saying swap them around. You wouldn't say so, would you? But because we, in our heads, have signed a striker at number 9 and he's not playing there, it's always, he should just put him in the number 9, then he'll score. Which, I mean, there's no right or wrong answer here, because that could happen. Like if you did play him in there, he might score more goals. But like he says, it is about the all-round play. He didn't actually give too much tactical insight on this. It was more, I think, that he was basically saying, this is my track record, trust me. Don't think there was too much. Did you feel that there was too much in the way of actually saying when Piroe drops in, it allows Rutter to spin in behind? No. And there wasn't too much actual tactical information there. It was more, I've done this before. I know what I'm doing. I'm the manager. Trust me. Which
I think there was there was a little bit with the, I think it was more a case of it. We're not the sum of our parts, or we are the sum of our parts, or the collective is better than the sum of our parts. And if you put Piroe in the number 9, then maybe you lose something from a pressure and a pressing perspective that you get from Rutter and Bamford.
Yeah.
And Piroe does do a very good job kind of going under the radar in that 10, where he does do the little connective tissue bits in the middle. He does keep the ball moving left to right. He does link to play quite well.
I sometimes feel, though, Piroe's got a not great first touch, and his ability to have short passing in his game isn't great. I think sometimes he takes the ball at his feet and he can't trap it. It bounces away from him like trampoline feet, as you would get called in amateur football if you've got a terrible first touch. And it sort of bounces away from him a little bit. And sometimes he can't link up the play. Sometimes he does. And I think against Watford, he did really well at linking up the play and becoming involved with actually drifting over to the wingers, which when I made that video about what Jorginho, Rutter and Piroe should play like, in my opinion, it was to swap them round, but then it was the fact that Rutter needed to drift wide and create overloads with, so say on the right-hand side, if it was Spence and Somerville, he would then make that 2 into a 3, so that however many players the opposition put across there, you've got an extra man to make the running behind or to get the ball and play a 1-2 and basically drift from side to side, linking up the play. And Piroe did do that in the Watford game, but I don't think we've seen enough of him doing that in that role. And maybe he is just learning how to play in this system. And maybe that's going to take a little bit of time, because I think the fact that he scored instantly didn't help either, because he came in and scored instantly, and we're like, oh, he's a striker, so he doesn't need to know the system. He didn't even have a training session. He doesn't even know he doesn't need to know the system. He's just going to go in as a number 9 and score goals. But now he's have this sort of slightly withdrawn role. I think we need more data, a bigger data set, don't we? But certainly, like you say, Joe, it's not for us. It's not time to stop asking that question, because if it doesn't work in games and it continues not to work in games, then there's the question to be asked, isn't there? You've signed a striker. Should he play up front, or should Rutter, who has played his best football when dropping a bit deeper and running at players, should they be swapped around? And I don't think it's time for us to stop asking that question.
Do you take... I got lucky. I got onto you in a sec, lucky with this. But Max, do you take the fact that he said, pretty much, I know what I'm doing, trust me? Do you take that and go, okay, you've got enough credit in the bank so far this season, I'll give you that.
It's a bit of, having credit in the bank, but also I think it's, okay, show us then. And I think if we have another 10 games halfway through the season, 20 games in, I think you then look at the data set, which is a bigger sample size, and you can count up the games and say how many it's worked in, how many it hasn't. Because I've started doing that already when I've been in my watch-alongs and stuff. I've been saying, look, it worked really well in the Ipswich game. It worked really well in the Watford game. It worked in some other games it's worked in as well. And at the moment, I think it's about 50-50 where it's worked, in my opinion, where it's worked really well. And I do think it's to do with what the opposition we're playing. I think it works really well when we're playing against teams who come out and play against us. I don't think it works anywhere near as well when we're playing against a low block, because in a game where you're trying to break down a low block, your striker has to be the one to be on the end of things, because you don't get as many chances. So for me, when we're playing against a team who is going to sit deep, you have to have Piroe as the striker, because when Dan James whips a ball across the box and there's nobody there to get it, it's like, that's where Piroe should have been. And he's on the edge of the box doing his job, doing what he's been asked to do. But for me, I think it needs to be more of a fluid thing of, okay, we're playing Watford this week. They're going to come out and attack us. Joel Piroe should play in the sort of number 10 role and arrive late to score. If we're playing, I don't know, somebody down the bottom of the table, they're going to sit in a low block. Piroe should be, for me, in the number 9 in those games, because Daniel Farke said his ability to finish is unmatched in this division.
Yeah.
So in those situations where you just need somebody to have a snapshot and score, it could be the difference between drawing a game 0-0 and winning the game 1-0. That's where I sit on it at the moment. But like I say, 10 more games and we could really properly judge how many it's worked in and how many it hasn't.
Yeah, no, it's a fair point. Lucky, what do you think? What are your thoughts on the whole thing?
So I think I'm slightly on the other side of it. I think I agreed originally more with what Daniel Farke said, and I've got a lot wrong. Let me just clarify that this season. But this one, I was happy you said it. I was like, oh, I'm learning. But yeah, I've got a lot wrong. I said Darko JB was going to be one of the... Yeah, we won't go into that. But yeah, it's like... And I'll start off with this bit. I've got quite a bit, so I'll start off with traditional roles. We usually think number 9, you think, right, striker, last man, getting behind, score, right? That's number 9. Or hold it up, right? Number 10, creative midfielder, passing, through balls, David Silva type play. I think the norms of the 9 and the 10 are completely different these days. I don't think the 10 necessarily exists anymore, because I think in most setups, in most systems, the front four are very, very fluid, particularly in possession-based systems, because in order to break blocks down, you have to be fluid, right? You just can't sit in number 10. You'll just get a guy in front of you and you can't receive the ball. As simple as that. Like you look at, when City play, you look at, that's the best example, isn't it? You look at De Bruyne, who plays that role. He played false 9 sometimes, De Bruyne, but he's never there. He'll drop really deep to receive the ball. Again, it's about that. It's also about attributes. So what attributes does that player have? Do they have the right attributes to play the system you want, ideally? I think it's fair to say Joel Piroe does not have the perfect attributes for a 9 that Daniel Farke traditionally plays with. But then we're looking at, again, the other side of it. We're talking about Piroe, but the other guy is Jorginho. He's the other side of it. He's the other one. And it's hard to move or change his role in the team when he's been really good and he's actually now found a position where he's thriving. And we all said at the start of the season, didn't we? Even me, I did a video on it. He's not a striker. Well, what he's doing right now is from a traditional number 9, but he's not, he's not a number 9. He's not the traditional number 9, sorry. It's a different role. It's a different position, right? He's not that traditional striker that goes in behind like Bamford is. His striking role, he's a free rein. And that's because of the attributes of that player. And that's what suits the system. The issue is finding a way in which Piroe is effective as Jorginho with his attributes, with Jorginho's attributes. And that's kind of been the kind of conundrum that Daniel Farke has had to deal with because, look, he's not the perfect style of player for Daniel Farke necessarily. He said that, he doesn't press, he's not the best at tracking, he doesn't stretch the play. Jorginho does all them things quite well. Jorginho's not the best in terms of winning the ball high up, but he's pressing in terms of the intensity, the way he cuts half the pitch off when he runs at the defender. He's very good. It's impressive. And he stretches it, and that's a big one for me. Piroe doesn't stretch the play. Jorginho Rutter is never hardly where he should be in a traditional number 9 role. But where he is on the pitch is extremely effective right now. He's in a great thing of form, and I think that's what Daniel Farke was kind of saying, where, look, we have this player who can score goals. I don't want to affect Jorginho's role because he's doing exactly what I need him to do. So how do we then fit this guy who can score goals in? And it's about understanding when that traditional 10 role is needed and when that 10 role is adapted to be a 9, because there is times where Piroe does play a lot further up the pitch than Jorginho. Jorginho will come into CDM and pick the ball up and run past 3 players. Piroe can't do that. So if that's the role of the 9 in this system, Piroe's not going to drop that deep and run past 3 players. So I think it's, again, just trying to find the balance of how to get the best out of each individual, depending on 1, the attributes of the player, 2, the system, and 3, the match or the scenario of the game you're in, for the long answer. So I agree with him personally, but like I said, the conversation's good because they're both very good players and they both can score goals and affect games, and it's about how do we get the best out of them both. And I think we found it with Jorginho. I think we've shown glimpses of it with Rutter, with Piroe. But as Farke said as well, he mentioned in there about Piroe's touch once or twice last game wasn't good enough. He did mention that. Those are the things, regardless of where you're playing, that's got to be better. And I think that sharpness is still slightly lacking at the moment for Joe Piroe. And I think if you add that sharpness, he gets more goals for me.
Yeah, I think he made the point about Swansea don't play the same as we play. So playing the number 9 for Leeds and playing number 9 for Swansea is different anyway. So it's not the same thing. It's a question that will probably, as Max has already said, rumble on, I think. And unfortunately, for what Farke has asked is don't share his name when he scores goals and criticize them when he's not scoring goals. But at the same time, we're not going to question Joe Piroe's position in the club when he's scoring goals. It's when he doesn't score goals, you're going to ask that question. Or when Leeds as a team don't score, or Leeds as a team don't create chances, that's when that conversation is going to come back around. Well, how many balls went across the 6-yard area and how many strikers were in there when the balls went in there? Look at QPR last week as an example. There's 2 or 3 balls fizzed into the front post and there was nobody there because Piroe was deep and Rutter was out wide. So you're lacking that poacher. Is there an argument that you could try and squeeze, Bamford, Rutter and Piroe into that side and slightly change to a 4-3-3 kind of formation without upsetting things too much? I don't think Farke would do that because it removes his double pivot, but there's options there. Again, I just would hate to see a situation where Pat Bamford ends up being in the 9 and Rutter ends up being in the 10 because Piroe's not on form. You're going, if he's not on form because he's not playing in his best position, he's playing in the wrong position, and that's why he's out of the team. That's the bit that frustrates me, is if Paddy can play there, regardless of pressing, because again, I think if you look at most of our games, even the one with the goal with the ball being nicked off QPR, it's kind of passed back into an area for us. I don't think that's won back by pressing. I think that's just won back because of it's a bad ball into an area where there's a Leeds player and they just break quickly. I don't think Leeds press. And then if you look at the Southampton game, there was no press for 90 minutes. So when there isn't the press, the argument about who presses better becomes redundant because of those reasons. When there is a press, fine. You can say Rutter does it better and Bamford. Bamford's been known for doing all the donkey work and running around.
And when there is a press, it's more likely to be against those teams who are trying to play out from the back, which generally tends to be a team who wants a bit of possession and tries to play against us. And we didn't do it because Southampton were the prime example of that. They passed it out and we sat off and we let them play out from the back. So, I mean, there's your example of, well,
does that argument stand up then against a team who do play from the back? And the evidence so far, again, back to your point, Max, about not having enough data. When we did play against side who played out from the back, Southampton, we didn't do it. We didn't press at all. So having Rutter in the 9 in that situation just ends up being a frustration because he's not getting on the ball enough. When he does get on the ball, he's offside because he's trying to run beyond. Whereas Piroe doesn't do that. He drops short a little bit and tries to link the play and then gets in behind. So I see it from both sides. I do accept the answer that he's given today in as far as we wanted a detailed answer, and he's respectfully given us a very, very detailed answer into how he thinks about it. But you do get that impression from him as well that he's not sold necessarily on this being the way forever. He will change this if it doesn't feel like it's working. I mean, you could see a situation where Rutter goes out to the right hand side, and you could end up with Piroe in the 10 and Bamford in the 9. I think that might actually suit Piroe better because Bamford will naturally play with his back to goal. And then maybe he can link the play better with Piroe running onto the ball, whereas Rutter looks to get in behind all the time. So there are different combinations there as well.
Yeah, I do think it's interesting what Lockie says, though, about it's kind of about reframing what the roles are. It's kind of about reframing what the roles are in football, isn't it? Because we've been told that this is a 4-2-3-1. It's like that number 10 is only a traditional number 10, like a Lionel Messi, like a Elias Chair. I know they're not comparable, but just first two that popped into my head. Those sort of short, stocky number 10s who, well, not stocky, but low center of gravity, who will pick up the ball, turn and play passes. It's more like imagining that he's a second striker, isn't it? As a center forward and then a striker. Like it's more like a 4-2-2-1-1. And that Joel Piroe, yes, he drops in here, but his job is also to be going up there and trying to get into the box and score goals. It's almost reframing what we've been taught to understand about certain roles within the team, and the fact that a number 10 isn't necessarily a Pablo Hernandez, somebody who picks up the ball, looks up, gets passes away, because Joel Piroe's passing range is really not great.
No.
But like if you're saying, Lockie, in those games where he is in this role, he's going to want to get forward and join that attack, and it essentially makes it a 2 up top, and you kind of become a 4-2-2-2. And yeah, so for me, it's interesting that I always just think about that role as the number 10 role, but what you've said there has made me think about that it's a kind of about a little bit of reframing what those roles and responsibilities actually mean, and that they don't necessarily always mean the same thing, because we always talk about a number 10 and wanting to sign a number 10 and a certain type of player that we should have. But when you actually look at Norwich's team, this would have been Todd Cantwell sometimes. He's tall, he's gangly, and he's good at getting forward and getting into the box and scoring goals.
Sniperman as well, Max. Yeah, massive guy. Played in the 10. Yeah,
so it's not necessarily somebody like Emi Buendia. Traditionally, you would have gone, okay, yeah, put him in the number 10 because he's small, low center of gravity, turns on it quickly, and has a passing ability that outweighs a lot of the rest of his team. But that's not what Farke did. So maybe we are starting to see that he did have a bit of history with this, and that it's not just a traditional number 10. It's almost a second striker who goes up and joins that, and obviously then Rutter drops in, and it just becomes, I think the only issue then, if that is the way that Farke wants to play, is sometimes it's not fluid enough. Sometimes the players aren't in the positions you need to be, and that covers what me and Jer's complaints were really about Piroe not being there to finish those chances. Because if Piroe's role is to get in the box and finish off those chances, you get, Dan James here with the ball, and he's whipping it into the box. That's where Piroe has to have made that run already, and Rutter needs to drop out. They need to have swapped by that point. When they can see that play is happening, they can see that, Archie Gray's played the ball down the line to Dan James. That's when these two need to swap and Dan James Piroe go into the box to be the one that finishes that off. But for me, the problem so far has been that they aren't fluid enough to sort of
to get that
know
swap.
When to swap. Yeah. But maybe that is something that will come with time, because they're not used to playing together. So hopefully over time, Rutter and Piroe get that chance to play together so often that they know exactly what each other's going to do, and they get to know the system so well they know exactly what each other's going to do. But that is something that probably, for me, will take time.
And it's just talking about Jorginho as well. Like I mentioned earlier, like look, we're all saying he's not a 9, but the stuff he's doing now is he's our 9, whatever that role is. The role is working for him. Yeah. So these managers are another level, you know, something that they just slap 10-minute conversation. And you go, oh, okay. You know, and look, yeah, that's why they are where they are. And that's why I was writing notes during that thing. I'm always learning. And that's why I love it when I see a manager in a press conference talk like that. You know, Bielsa used to do it, didn't they? He used to go into some detail and you sat there learning and you're going, oh, okay. And that's what I want to see. I love stuff like that. It's brilliant. And again, it's good to create a conversation on those things, isn't it?
Of course it is. And he said that himself, that he, football's about opinions and about conversation, and he's okay with that. He respects that, and he knows fans will talk about it. He said just doesn't want to talk about it in every press conference, which is fair as well. But I remember the more I watched Bielsa's press conferences, lucky on what you just said there, I took aspects of what he said to training, and I went, I've just heard this. I've looked into it a little bit. This is something we should be doing. No one else is doing this. Let's try this. And the year that I took a lot of Bielsa stuff in, we won a cup and league double.
There you go.
So it was because nobody else was doing. No one was as fit as the team were, and nobody passed the ball as fast and as.
That's when it can really make a difference in amateur football, because nobody else is doing anything like that, and it's almost like amateur football is like. Well, I know that's not amateur, is it? What you were doing, Joe?
It's kind of amateur, yeah.
Yeah, well, where I played was really amateur, and it's like when somebody comes in with actually a style of play and something that they want to implement, it's like they've run away with a league because everybody else is just playing 4-4-2. It's like the 80s in amateur football. So it makes a massive difference. I mean, we had murder ball in one training session.
Don't know. So again, sorry.
We had murder ball in one training session. Just the coach, who wasn't a Leeds fan or anything, he'd obviously just been interested and looked into it. I think he'd adapted it slightly to make it easier for us because we weren't exactly the fittest. But he did it, and at least it was like the ideas were trickling down to grassroots almost. But that's how much of an effect those new ideas can have on football in general.
I tried it at 2 clubs. I tried it at the club that we did well at, and the players bought into murder ball, and we did the 3 sets of 6 minutes, and we had multi-ball, and ball never died, and we thought we break it up, and we tell them why they're all chasing after the ball in the first part of it, and then, what their movement should be like, but consistent movement, but in shape. So we brought that in the second one, and the more we did it, the better they got. And then you could see the last 10-15 minutes of games, we were just overrunning teams. And again, it's that structured play of knowing exactly how everyone knows where everyone else is going to be. Everyone knows exactly what the game plan is, because there's a strategy and an actual substance to the style of play. It's not just we've got a style of play and it's possession. It's more than just possession. It's possession with purpose. There's an extra level to teaching everybody what everyone else's role is. And then I brought it to another club last season at a slightly lower level, or this season. And I got into a full-blown argument with one of the players who was on the committee and also one of the senior players about how this was rubbish and it doesn't work and what are we doing, to the point where I went, there's just no point in doing it with you guys. You don't get it. You're not open to it. What's the point? There's no point in doing it.
The first one was Bielsa's, it was your Leeds, and the second one was it Lazio, where he walked away within a couple of days?
What's the point? What's the point? It can be very disenfranchised.
Yeah,
but it's,
players have to be willing to do it.
These things. Yeah, and when Farke starts talking about his stuff, you straight away kind of go, a lot of what he's saying out loud is adaptable. A lot of people who are learning the game should be picking up on these things and lucky, as you've already said, making notes, writing the stuff down, because it will come in super useful.
Football's always adapting. It's always changing. And the fact that we're having access to these coaches saying stuff like this, I listen to like interviews from Pep all the time, and it's just the things he says you wouldn't even think of, like the body position, just tiny little things that change so much. It's really good. And yeah, like you look at the way it's changing. Pep came to the Premier League and totally changed the philosophy. Now teams have suddenly their entire what's it called, identity is to sit deep, because of the reaction to how to defend against teams that have, like, for example, inverted fullbacks to create overloads. Right? How do we counter that? Right, we'll sit deeper and we'll go man for man in midfield. Okay. So then Pep just went, all right, well, I'll put a centre back in midfield as well. How about that? Yeah. It's constant. And you look at the Championship now, how many teams now either play high press or possession-based football? Most of them, right? Unless they play against the big teams like Leeds, Leicester, in which they sit deep, they park the bus. This is what's happening. Look, 15 years ago in the Championship, no team's parking the bus and the team's dominating possession. It's end-to-end. That was what it was known for, right? Now it's completely different. And you've seen it in League One with Ipswich last year, with McKenna. the way in which they played. And these managers, these Pep, Bielsa, even Daniel Farke to an extent, loads of them, endless managers, they come over and plant their philosophy on English football, particularly, and it's just, yeah. It's filtering
astonishing
down
how much of it come from Pep as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like he'll do something and then everybody will be doing it.
How much of it came from Ajax originally? Because total football
Cruyff.
was the Ajax model.
Johan Cruyff.
Bielsa ball is an adaptation of total football. And then Guardiola studied under Bielsa. So his version of football is his adaptation of what Bielsa's done. You look at De Zerbi, he's another fan of Bielsa and Guardiola, but his system is slightly different again, but there are similarities. So it's how can you take a style that's maybe revolutionary or modern, and then how do you implement your ideas on football into that as well and come up with a compromised system and style of play that works for your team, but makes you unique. And also, if you're looking at Manchester City setup, a lot of teams will go, well, we can go low block and we can beat them, but we could contain them, but they've got these big, massive players that can pull a goal out of nowhere. But if I'm playing against Brighton, we're playing the same system as Man City and the same style as Man City, then I can park the bus a bit easier and I can probably break out every now and then, try and go and win. And that's where the individual manager needs to go, well, that's where my changes come in. That's where my adaptation of this system to this club.
I think is the most difficult adaptation there is, because taking it from Ajax, who obviously were one of the best teams in the world at the time, and then Cruyff took it to Barcelona, and they were just obviously one of the biggest football clubs in the world. Guardiola's been to Barcelona, Bayern, and Man City, and he's done it with all the best players in the world. Somebody like De Zerbi, I think, is not more impressive than what Pep Guardiola's done in his career. Don't get me wrong, but I think it's really, really impressive because he's doing it with lesser players, and to adapt. Usually, the most popular and the most exciting styles of football to watch are played by the best teams because they've got the players to do it, where they can take more risks and know that they're still going to be able to win because they've got that good of players. When a team down the bottom of the table, you saw it when Bielsa succeeded until that second season that he had, the season he got sacked. It went wrong because we didn't have the players to be able to execute his philosophy. And the fact that somebody like De Zerbi is able to do that with Brighton's squad is amazing to me. Like to see a team who you kind of expect to be lower down in the table on paper, when you actually look at the players they have, be up there and playing as attractive attacking football is really what I love to see, because how many teams in the Premier League just sit back and defend your Wolves, your Evertons, it's just horrible. And you're like, oh, we've got them this week. And you watch it and you just think, what is that? It's just non-football, isn't it? And it's boring to watch. If everybody just tried a bit harder.
It's a lack of ambition, though, as well, is what it is. Like you're already saying going out, we know we're going to lose to these, so we're going to do our best to minimize it as much as we can, or try and nick a draw. I'd rather go out with my sword, if I'm being honest. And I was always that kind of a coach. It's like, yeah, they're a really good side, but let's see what we have. Let's see what we've got good players here, I believe. And it also says to your players you don't believe in them as well. Like, let's just sit back and try and soak it up and go, well, no, I believe in you guys to go out and get a result. Let's get at these. There's every team has their weaknesses. Manchester City have their weaknesses. Their back four isn't necessarily great at defending because they don't have to defend most of the time.
They're on the ball all the time.
Exactly. Well, they've got a Bournemouth centre back playing left back for them week in, week out, and it's like
you don't need to defend. Why have defenders? Just put more midfielders in there.
Let's play John Stones. Play John Stones.
Goalkeeper at centre back.
You can, because teams are just going to sit back and you're like, well, how many chances are they actually going to face? And if we get a couple of goals in the first few minutes, anyway, it's a longer conversation. We could talk about this. I love
this is what happens when those three get together.
I know, yeah. I love it. I could do a whole masterclass tactical breakdown stuff. I love it. It's brilliant. We are over time though, so we're going to wrap it up. Just a massive thank you to Lockie from Lockie Leeds, and a massive thanks to Max as well. And there are breakdowns, there are tactical videos. If you enjoyed this tactical conversation, there are some more in-depth stuff on both these guys' channels, who both do an incredible job of breaking down performances. You can get Lockie's ratings after the games as well. Max has his watch-alongs. There's a ton of content that these two boys produce. So if you're not subscribed to them, what is wrong with you is the first question. The second one is go over and stick a like on it. It's they're worth following. They do some great content as well. So and they're regulars on this podcast, and I wouldn't have a podcast without them. So massive thanks to both of them as well. Lockie, thanks so much for joining me. Anything going on your channel this week?
I'm slacking at the moment, Joe, at university. I can't lie, but they will be. There'll be obviously match reports, all that fun stuff. Some tactical stuff, maybe, if I've got time as well.
Yeah, okay. Max, how about you?
There'll be a live watch along on Saturday and a match reaction to that game as well. And then it's the international break after that, isn't it? So I'll have to dig deep in the bottom of the barrel to find some content to make.
Do me a favor, go watch the Scoobs interview. It's on 9,000 views. I promise Leeds 10.
Yes.
It'll be great to get that. Might get some more interviews off the back of that as well. So, and again, thanks to Leeds for doing that. Right, we're going to wrap it up. Folks, thank you very much, as always, for supporting the channel and watching. If you're listening on the audio, thanks very much. There was a tactics board broken out on the back end of this. You might want to go over to YouTube and check that one out if you want to listen to the audio. But Max did a very good job of describing it. So, right, we're done. Gonna stop talking. Thanks very much. Have a great weekend. Fingers crossed for 3 points. See you then. Bye.